Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English story. You know how sometimes you just think you have everything figured out? I used to think that was me. I had this idea that if I just worked harder, if I kept grinding, kept hustling, I'd eventually find success, happiness, something. There was this voice inside my head telling me that the harder you push, the more you accomplish. That's what the world wants, right? Work harder, get more, be better. Simple. But the thing is, I didn't know that I was chasing something that was already slipping through my fingers. I was caught in this loop of more, more. I didn't even realize how toxic it had gotten. I just thought that was how life worked. Push until you get there. Whatever there was, I was doing all the right things. I was saying yes to every opportunity, every single one. I wasn't even asking myself if I wanted to do these things. I just said yes. If I want to get ahead, I had to keep my foot on the pedal. Don't stop. Don't slow down. Eventually, I catch my breath eventually, but I didn't. And honestly, I couldn't. It felt like I was running on empty, but I didn't know how to stop. I mean, who wants to stop? That's the thing. We're all in this race together. And if I slow down, I might fall behind. And that terrified me. I didn't see it then, but I was scared. Scared of what? Well, a lot of things. Mostly scared that I wasn't enough. Not good enough. Not smart enough. Not successful enough. I needed to prove something, but I didn't know what. And that fear, it was driving me. It's funny how fear works, right? You don't even realize it's there. It starts small, a little voice telling you to keep pushing. Then that voice gets louder. And before you know it, you're drowning in it. At some point, I hit a wall. Not the dramatic, movie style, I fell apart in front of everyone kind of wall. No, it was more like a slow burn. One day, I just woke up and realized I felt nothing. I had no energy, no excitement, no spark. Everything felt hollow. I was going through the motions, but I didn't know why. And it wasn't like I had stopped working. Oh no, I was still doing the thing. I was still hustling, but nothing felt fulfilling anymore. It was like I was stuck on a treadmill, running as fast as I could, but getting nowhere. Every success felt empty. And every goal I met just left me feeling more tired, more distant from myself. I don't know exactly when it clicked, but at some point, I realized that all the things I thought I wanted, those achievements, those accolades, that status didn't really matter. I had been chasing something, but I wasn't sure what it was anymore. I was so caught up in the game that I didn't even know the rules. And that's when I finally stopped. I mean, really stopped. I had to. I looked myself in the mirror one day, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't just see the person who was chasing success. I saw someone who was scared. Not scared of failing, but scared of not being seen, of not being enough. I was afraid that if I didn't hustle hard enough, I wouldn't matter. That if I didn't achieve, I wouldn't be loved or valued. That was the fear I had been running from all this time, and I wasn't going to outrun it anymore. I had to face it. So, I started asking myself a hard question. What was I really afraid of? At first, it felt like a trick question. Like, wasn't it obvious? But when I really sat with it, I realized the answer wasn't what I thought it would be. I wasn't afraid of failure or of falling behind. I was afraid of being invisible, of living a life that didn't matter. of waking up one day and realizing that everything I had done was just noise. And that's when I had a breakthrough. I started realizing that the whole thing, the hustle, the toxic drive, was my way to try to cover up that fear. I was pushing myself to do more, to be more, to achieve more, because I thought if I did enough, I'd finally be seen. But the truth was, I wasn't letting myself be me. The turning point came when I realized that the things I really cared about, the things that made me feel alive, had nothing to do with accolades. They had everything to do with how I showed up for myself and for the people I loved. It was about the small moments, the quiet victories, the real connections. And so I began to redefine what success meant. I stopped asking what other people thought was valuable and started listening to what felt true for me. Success wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about aligning my actions with my values and choosing to live a life that felt meaningful. It wasn't easy, though. Letting go of that toxic drive was like pulling off a layer of skin. It hurt. I had to face a lot of hard truths about myself. I had to stop chasing validation from others and start seeking it from within. I had to remind myself that I didn't need to prove anything. Just being me was enough. Little by little, the pressure I had been carrying started to lift. I wasn't constantly exhausted anymore. I wasn't afraid of running out of time or missing out. And honestly, I started to enjoy life again. Like, really enjoy it. The joy wasn't in the big wins anymore, but in the quiet moments of being present. The moments where I wasn't trying to impress anyone, just being myself. I had finally learned to define my fear, to recognize it for what it was, and not let it control me. It wasn't the fear of failure or not being good enough, it was the fear of losing myself in the process. And once I named that fear, I could let it go. I don't have it all figured out yet. Some days are harder than others, but now I know that I'm enough just as I am, and I don't need to keep running anymore. So here's the thing about life. We're constantly redefining ourselves. We think we got it all figured out, and then something shifts. A small change, a quiet realization, or even a quiet moment of stillness. And suddenly, you're looking at everything with fresh eyes. And when that happens, it can feel a little scary, but also kind of exhilarating. It's like opening a door you've been avoiding your whole life. I'll be honest. Even after I decided to stop running and face my fear of not being enough, the journey didn't just magically become easy. Far from it. I thought that by understanding my fear, I'd somehow unlock this peaceful, perfect version of myself, where everything was clear and calm and totally under control. But life doesn't work like that, does it? In the months after I stopped that crazy grind, I found myself slipping back into old habits. I'd start to overbook my calendar again, say yes to things that didn't feel right, and get caught up in the pressure to be perfect. It was like the fear I had been running from wasn't gone. It had just gotten quieter, more subtle, kind of like a shadow hanging over me. I realized that for a long time, I had associated my worth with what I could accomplish. The more I did, the more valuable I felt. But when I started to slow down and really think about it, I understood that true motivation doesn't come from forcing yourself to work harder. It comes from aligning with what truly lights you up from the inside. And as scary as it was, I had to learn to be okay with doing less. Here's the tough lesson. I had to start saying no. That was probably the hardest part. No to extra projects. No to things that didn't excite me. No to overcommitting just because I felt guilty or afraid that someone might think I wasn't good enough if I didn't keep pushing. And that was the turning point when I finally gave myself permission to not do everything, to not always be on, to take breaks, to relax. But this is the funny thing. When I let go of the pressure to do it all, to be it all, I found a motivation that had been hiding all along. It wasn't about doing more. It was about doing what truly mattered. It was about making space for what I loved, not what I thought I should love. It was about choosing the people who made me feel seen, the activities that made me feel alive, the things that brought me joy, not because they were going to make me famous or successful, but because they were mine. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I could breathe again. And that's when the real growth started. I realized that true motivation isn't about avoiding fear or running from the hard stuff. It's about facing those things, yes, but then deciding how you're going to move forward. It's about knowing that you don't have to live up to anyone else's expectations. You get to choose your own path. And that, my friend, is powerful. In the past, I was so caught up in the idea of proving myself, of trying to prove that I was worth something through my achievements, that I didn't notice the beauty of the journey itself. I was missing the moments, the quiet, small moments that give life its richness, the moments with friends, the time spent with my family, the quiet mornings with a cup of coffee, the freedom to rest without guilt. I've learned that those moments, those are the ones that matter. The moral of my journey? It's not about how much you can do or how much you can achieve. It's about how much you can be, about letting go of the pressure to constantly prove your worth and instead finding the courage to embrace who you are, imperfections and all. And let's be real, we all still face that fear sometimes. The fear that we're not enough. The fear that if we stop pushing, we'll fall behind. But when I find myself in those moments, I remember the truth I've learned along the way. It's not the pushing that makes you worthy. It's the being. It's the way you show up for yourself and the people you love. It's the way you take a step back, breathe, and allow yourself to grow at your own pace. So, here's where I am now. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm doing it in a way that feels true to me. I'm learning to say no, to honor my own needs, and to listen to my body and soul when they ask for rest. I'm creating the space for what really matters. And, maybe most importantly, I'm learning to define my own fear, to name it, and to let it go because it doesn't control me anymore. I don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone does. But what I do know is this: you don't have to run from fear to feel powerful. You don't have to sacrifice your peace or your happiness for success. True motivation comes when you're brave enough to stop and ask yourself, what do I really want? What makes me feel alive? That's when the magic happens. Okay, let's be real. Letting go of toxic drive didn't mean I suddenly had everything figured out. I still had moments where the old voice, the one that told me I needed to work harder, do more, be more, would creep up. It's like trying to break a bad habit. It's not something you just forget about. It's something you have to keep choosing to break, day after day. But here's what I discovered. Each time I chose to slow down and listen to myself instead of pushing forward mindlessly, I felt more me than I had in a long time. And that right, there was the gift I had been searching for all along. I realized that success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what aligns with your heart. It's about being in harmony with your own values, not someone else's idea of what's important. You see, when we're driven by a fear of not being enough, we often end up doing things because we think we should, not because we actually want to. And that's where I was for so long, living a life built around what I thought was expected of me, rather than what truly mattered to me. But once I started to focus on my own sense of motivation, on the things that brought me joy and peace, something changed. I stopped feeling like I was constantly running behind, constantly chasing an idea of success that wasn't even mine. And I started to understand that life wasn't a race at all. It wasn't about reaching some finish line or getting to some arbitrary point of achievement. Life is about experiencing it in the moment. It's about feeling the small victories, the ones that don't come with a trophy, but that make your heart feel full. That's the big shift that happens when you stop running from your fear. You realize that you're already enough, that everything you need is already inside you. You don't need to keep proving yourself to anyone. You don't need to be the best or the most successful. You just need to be authentically you. And I'm not saying that all my fears disappeared overnight. They didn't. But over time, I've learned to sit with those fears, listen to them, and understand what they're really trying to tell me. Most of the time, they're just there to remind me that I'm human and that it's okay to have doubts and insecurities. But those fears don't control me anymore. They don't dictate my choices. And that, my friend, is a freedom I never knew existed until I started defining my own fear. There's this moment, this beautiful moment, when you stop and realize that you don't need to chase anything anymore. You don't need to keep running. You can just be. And when you do that, when you embrace that stillness, you start to see the beauty in the present moment. You start to enjoy life for what it is, not what you think it should be. I remember this one afternoon when I finally understood what I had been missing. I had been working for months on a personal project, something I'd poured my heart into, and I was feeling really proud of it. But then, as I sat there looking at it, I realized that it wasn't the finished product that made me feel fulfilled. It wasn't the result or the recognition. It was the process, the act of creating, of learning, of growing. It was the joy of simply doing something because it mattered to me, not because I thought it would impress someone else. That was the moment I knew. This was what true motivation felt like. It wasn't about the outcome. It was about the journey. It was about doing something because it resonated with my soul. It was about choosing what felt right over what I thought was expected. And that's the thing I want you to take from all of this. The real, lasting motivation comes from within. It comes when you stop chasing after someone else's idea of success and start living by your own standards. It's when you stop running from your fears and start understanding them, accepting them, and choosing how you want to move forward, regardless of what anyone else thinks. When you do that, you begin to move through life with a kind of peace you never thought possible. You start to realize that it's okay not to have everything figured out. And that's actually part of the beauty of it all. You can let go of the pressure to do it all and instead focus on the things that truly make your heart sing. Now, don't get me wrong. Life is still full of challenges. There's still moments of doubt, moments where I feel unsure. But I've learned how to navigate those moments with grace. I don't let fear control me anymore. I choose to face it, acknowledge it, and move forward in a way that feels authentic and true to who I am. And you know what? That's all I really need. The moral of it all, the truth is, we all face fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of failure, fear of not measuring up. But what I've learned through my own journey is that the only way to move past that fear is to define it. When you face your fear head on, when you name it and understand it, you take away its power. You stop letting it control your life and instead choose to live by your own terms. True motivation isn't about doing more, achieving more, or proving anything to anyone. It's about showing up for yourself. It's about knowing that you are already enough, exactly as you are. When you live in alignment with what feels true to your soul, you'll find that everything else falls into place. Success is no longer measured by external markers. It's measured by your own sense of fulfillment and peace. So, take a moment, breathe, define your fear, and then choose to move forward in a way that honors who you truly are. The rest will follow. Okay, so here's the thing about growth, it's not a straight line. It's a series of messy, beautiful, unpredictable moments. Some days you feel on top of the world, and other days you feel like you're back at square one. And that's all right, because in those moments of feeling stuck, you realize something profound. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And that's the journey I've been on, for better or worse. After I had that breakthrough, after I really started to embrace the idea of living for me, not for some distant version of success, it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine. I mean, yes, I felt lighter, more at peace with myself. But the world doesn't stop just because you've decided to slow down and define your own path. In fact, the world often feels louder when you stop running, doesn't it? There's something almost overwhelming about living more intentionally. All of a sudden, the noise of everyone else's expectations gets clearer. You realize how often we're told to hustle, to push ourselves beyond our limits, to always do more. It's like society is this constant pressure cooker, telling you that if you're not achieving something, if you're not on, you're falling behind. And let me tell you, it's hard not to feel that pressure. But this is where the real test comes in. It's in those moments when everything feels loud and overwhelming that I have to remind myself, this is my journey, and I get to choose how to walk it. I've learned to stop comparing myself to others. Stop measuring my worth by how much I've done or what I've accomplished. I don't need to prove myself to anyone. The only person I need to answer to is myself. And the thing about defining your fear, really defining it, is that it shifts something fundamental within you. You no longer see fear as a roadblock. You see it as a teacher. Fear isn't this big, scary monster that stops you in your tracks. It's a signal. It's a guide, helping you know where to look. When I stopped running from my fear of not being enough, I started seeing it as an opportunity to grow. One of the most surprising parts of this journey has been the people around me. I never expected this to affect others as much as it did. But when you start showing up authentically, when you stop hiding behind the masks of perfection and success, it's like the people around you start to do the same. It's a ripple effect. I started having more honest conversations with my friends, with my family, with colleagues. We began sharing more than just surface level small talk. We began talking about what truly mattered. It's like this unspoken bond forms when you're real. People can tell when you're being true to yourself. And that kind of vulnerability is contagious. I realized that by letting go of my fear of not being enough, I was giving others the space to let go of theirs. And that's powerful. We all feel the pressure to be something, to live up to some ideal. But when one person chooses authenticity, it makes it easier for everyone else to do the same. I remember one conversation I had with a friend of mine, someone who had always seemed so put together, so in control. And out of nowhere, she opened up about her own insecurities, about how she always felt like she had to keep up, always had to be perfect. And in that moment, I realized how much we all carry these invisible weights. We're all afraid of not being enough in some way. But the beauty of it is that when we start acknowledging that fear, we give ourselves permission to heal, to be vulnerable, and to show up for each other in a deeper, more meaningful way. The ripple effect. The thing I hadn't fully realized until now is how powerful living authentically is. It's not just about you. It's about the space you create for others to be themselves. Two, by defining my own fear, by choosing to live in alignment with my truth. I'm not just changing the way I see myself, I'm shifting how I relate to the world. And the impact is subtle but real. I found that when I stop pretending, when I start embracing my imperfections and my humanity, the people around me begin to do the same. And honestly, that's what makes life feel full. It's not the achievements, the trophies, or the accolades. It's the connections we make, the conversations we have, and the moments where we simply show up as ourselves. It's funny, because as I look back at the person I was before this all started, before I defined my fear, before I let go of that toxic drive, I realize how much of my life I spent running in circles. I spent so much time proving myself, climbing ladders, and checking boxes that I didn't even ask myself what I truly want. Now I know the answer. I want to live authentically. I want to do things that bring me joy and peace. Not because they'll get me somewhere, but because they make me feel alive. I want to be surrounded by people who love me for who I truly am, not for what I can do or what I've accomplished. I want to celebrate the small moments, the moments that remind me of my humanity, of my worth, just as I am. The world will always try to pull us in a million different directions. It'll always tell us to do more, be more, achieve more. But the real lesson I've learned is this: it's not about doing more, it's about being more, being present, being true to who you are, being okay with not having it all together. It's in those quiet moments, those simple choices to show up as yourself, that life feels the most fulfilling. The moral of it all. So here's the final takeaway from everything I've shared with you. True motivation comes from within. It's not about pushing yourself until you burn out. It's about being kind to yourself, acknowledging your fears, and choosing to move through life with authenticity. When you stop chasing an ideal version of yourself, when you let go of the need to be perfect, that's when you can truly live. The ripple effect of your authenticity will touch the lives of others. By defining your fear, facing it, and allowing yourself to be real, you give others permission to do the same. And when we all start showing up as our true selves, that's when the world becomes a much better, more beautiful place. So take a deep breath. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just be. The rest will follow. I'm so glad you spent this time with me. If you liked the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Take care, and see you next time.